Hello, everybody. Hope you're all doing well today. So, we're back with some more Fruit of Grisaia. Okay, my tea's right here. Perfect. Can't remember if I brought it with me or not. Oh. Hey, Brozard. How's it going? So, we're continuing on with the Amane's route, obviously. I'm actually here to start for once, but I'll be on the road. It's all good, it's all good. Appreciate that you're here. Just taking the time to stop by for a bit. I appreciate that a lot. Huh. Apparently failed to post the tweet. Oh well, that's fine. No biggie. So, we are continuing on with a Amane's route for today. Still in her flashback, by the way. Good lord, is it ever gonna end? What happened in those flashbacks? Well... things just kind of getting worse. When the teacher left to try to get help, he took half of their already small food supply. So, you know, that's pretty bad. The girl that had both her legs broken is kind of wishing to die because she is sitting inside her sleeping bag so much she is quite literally beginning to grow mold. Flashback? I thought she flashed her front. Oh my god. It's Amane, she will flash everything. So yeah, the girl whose legs are broken because she's sitting inside a humid-ass tent while sitting inside a sleeping bag, not being able to move too much and becoming very itchy for reasons, is beginning to grow a thin layer of mold that they have to wash off every now and again, which is pretty fucked up, if you ask me. Also, the girl who had her little Shih Tzu with her, well, the Shih Tzu died. And then proceeded to chop it up, cook it, and eat it. Yeah, everyone was super hungry, knew it was kind of fucked up, but it's like, we need to eat it. We need to eat the dog. And the girl they initially got to try to cut it open, and cut it up, prepare it, couldn't do it because she looked at its face. So Kazuki's solution to that problem was take the big stick she's been using to bang the pot in the morning to wake everyone up, and just smash its head. It's like, there, no face, nothing to stare at you with. Proceed. Yeah, a lot has happened. Things aren't going so well. We are on day 13 now. Yeah, so they ate the dog. They ate the fucking dog. And now I think everyone is really terrified of Kazuki, because she very nonchalantly, without any form of hesitation, smashed the dog's face in. Yeah. Ugh. It also described that because everything was raining so much, the leeches were getting inside their tent, and every day, every morning, they would have to peel them off. Including on their eyelids. Oh. God. I don't want to think of the fact that leeches were on their eyelids for multiple days. Ugh. Gross. Alright. Yeah, so we'll pick up right here on day 13 in this valley. Everything is really just continuing to go to shit. What's gonna happen next? Well, I mean, we know the end of it. Everyone's gonna fucking die except Amane, but how are we gonna get to that point? Alright. Day 13. Did I include it in the title? I did not. Content warnings, I will try to update them as it happens. There is some graphic stuff going on, so if anyone needs to step away at for any reason whatsoever, by all means, go right ahead. The 13th day in the valley. It happened far too suddenly. Komori-san, who'd seemed perfectly fine just a moment before, crumpled limply to the ground. For a moment, everyone who turned their head at the sound was simply dumbfounded. Komori? Kaneda-senpai called out to her partner, but Komori gave no response. Her body had begun to twitch convulsively on the ground. Oh, that ain't good! Komori hadn't fainted from lightheadedness or anemia. She was thrashing her body spasmodically? That would have been spasmatically. She's having spasms. Just going kind of weird. She was thrashing her body spasmodically as if she'd been possessed by some malevolent spirit. It was at once bizarre and terrifying to watch. Kaneda, suspecting an epileptic seizure, forcibly pinned down her partner's body from above in an attempt to keep her from hurting herself. Yeah, epileptic seizures are not great. My one bestie has epilepsy. I've only been around when she's had very minor things going on. Never been there for a full-on attack, thankfully. I honestly don't know what I would do. She's told me what to do, if it ever happens. But I don't know how I would react if I actually saw it happen in front of me. That character looks like someone I've seen in something else. Really? Yeah, it's possible. Maybe whoever drew the art of the characters did it in something else you've seen, possibly? Or maybe she just fits into some kind of archetype with the short hair. Can't put my finger on it. One of those tomboys with a fang. Huh. Yeah, that really doesn't narrow it down. Koide-senpai and I jumped to answer Kaneda's call as the others looked on in shocked silence. We managed to move Komori-san onto a blanket, but the seizure continued. At Koide's anxious command, I ran off to find my own partner.
どう？原因は何なの？倒れた時の様子はどうだったの？わかんないよ。気がついたら地面に倒れてて、魚みたいにピクンピクンって暴れ出して。転換じゃないの？小学生の頃こんな風に倒れた子見たことあるよ。転換の発作にしては長すぎるわね。
Komori's breathing was rapid, her teeth chattering in her mouth, and her unfocused eyes swung randomly from left to right. Her hands and feet trembled strongly on a regular rhythm, as if matching the beating of her heart.
犬を食べたから寄生虫に寄生されたんじゃ。犬はよく焼いてから食べたでしょ。考えにくいわね。小森さん、何か他に変わったものを食べたりしてなかった？
After a moment of thought, Kaneda's mouth fell open with a little... ah.
そういえば、なんか花の芽を食べてた。花？何の花？名前はわからないけど、 綺麗なピンク色の初めて見る花だった。これ食べられますかねって言って、その場で何個かつまんで食べてた。
Oh, she ate something poisonous, didn't she?
なんだろう。トリカブト？トリカブトの花は紫色だから、ジギタリスかもしれない。
Never heard of foxglove.
Kazuki laid a hand on Komori's trembling forehead.
熱があるわ。水分をたっぷりと取らせて、体を温かくしていっぱい汗をかかせるしかないわね。それで治るの？悪いけど、他には何もできないのよ。何にせよ、これに懲りたらよくわからないものをつまみ食いするのはやめなさい。
Yeah, even if it's you only know like maybe I can for sure eat 2 things, just eat those 2 things. Never take the Thank you for the sub, Anonymous, again? Oh, it's not showing the other 2 gifted subs from last night. But thank you very much. Who? Just... Who? Someone did this last night as well. They randomly gifted 2 subs. And thank you! I appreciate it! I wish I knew who you were so I could, you know, properly thank you. Yes, thank you. Like, honestly. You do not have to do this at all. So I appreciate it a lot, especially during, like, holiday season. Brozar, don't call them out. If they want to be anonymous, let them be anonymous. That's why that function exists. Think my tea's cool enough? I know your teas.
Under these starvation conditions, it was inevitable that our immune systems would grow weak. Recently, drinking water raw had become common practice, as no one wanted to waste time boiling it when they could be searching for food. And when foraging in the forest, many would pop even totally unfamiliar plants into their mouth if they looked vaguely edible. By now, disease is so mild that a normal person probably wouldn't even notice them or potentially life-threatening to us. That was how weak we'd grown. As we slowly carried Komori's quivering body into our tent, we could only grind our teeth at our powerlessness.
Kazami, ちょっといいかな?
We just left Komori to rest it when Sakuma-senpai called out to us.
なんか、伊吹の様子がおかしいんだよ。
Oh yeah, Ibuki's also acting really weird too. She's really out of it. Because she was on weird crash diets and trendy gimmicky diets before this happened, not having any kind of real food source is affecting her mental capabilities. She just really spaces out a lot now. Forgets things in general. But then acts totally normal a little bit after. So she's on the watch list of people that aren't doing too hot. Then again, at this point, all of them are on that list.
I had a very bad feeling about this. The moment we followed Sakuma into her tent, that...
Presentiment? Presentiment? Alright.
that presentiment was realized.
ねえ、今日は何日？ 私たちがここに来てから何日経ったのかな。
Okay, yeah, she's definitely not doing too good. Is there anything I should do? Let's close Discord right now. Oh yeah, I'm not actually on the game. There we go.
Wrapped up in her sleeping bag, Ibuki stared intently at a point on the tent's canopy, smiling slackily at nothing in particular as she spoke.
今日は何日？
Yeah, she's lost it.
今日は26日。ここに来て13日目よ。
Yeah, everything bad happens on 13.
そう。早く帰りたいな。
Even as she answered, Ibuki's eyes never turned toward us. The tone of her voice was vague, unfocused, almost like a sleepwalker conversing with her dream.
ちょっと出ようか。
As directed, we moved to leave the tent, but Ibuki immediately piped up.
ねえ、どこ行くの？私も行く。
This ain't good.
すぐ戻ってくるよ。おとなしく寝てな。今日は何日？
Okay, yeah, she is not doing too hot.
26日だよ。そう。早く帰りたいな。参ったよ。今朝からずっとあの調子なんだ。いつもならすぐに元に戻るのに、今日はもうずっとあんな感じだ。どうすることもできません。ここには薬もなければ自己回復力を上げるだけの需要もないんです。
Yeah. The dog, apparently, as they described last time, there was only enough meat on the dog for, like, literally a mouthful per person. Not a lot. They did like it, though. Mostly because they cooked that sucker in a lot of barbecue sauce that they had and any kind of spices they scrounged up. They made that thing taste good. Still fucked up that they did it, though.
このまま腐るに任せるしかないのか。見ていることしかできないのか。
Boil the bones, make a stock. I think they were literally chewing on the bones right after they finished the meat.
申し訳ありません。君が悪いんじゃないさ。無理を言っているのは私だ。すまなかったね。いえ。
Sakuma-senpai's powerless attempt at a smile conveyed only resignation and defeat, made all the more pitiful by her swollen face. It wasn't the flushed swelling of a fever. Her face was drained of all color, her ghastly pale cheeks visibly rough and dry. She was blinking constantly throughout our conversation. It may have been difficult merely to keep her eyes open behind those bloated cheeks.
佐久間さんも栄養失調が顔に出ています。気をつけてください。そうだね。気をつけるよ。
Okay, looks like it's back to normal. That was weird.
Exactly how was she supposed to be careful about starving when there was no damn food? Sakuma seemed mature in refraining from yelling the obvious retort in Kazuki's face, but quite possibly she simply no longer had the energy. Just how long would this situation last? Mentally, physically, in every possible way, we were being taxed beyond our capacity to endure. How long could we possibly hold it together under such circumstances? Even Kazuki, our acknowledged authority on mental toughness, could no longer fully hide her fatigue. Her youthfully framed face, burdened with that accumulated exhaustion, seemed to have aged somehow. Gently closing her eyes, Kazuki breathed a brief sigh. Breathed a brief sigh. Breathed a brief sigh, then proceeded to depress me until still further. I can't speak! Proceeded to depress me still further. I don't know if it's just my reading comprehension or me trying to do this while doing a dumb voice. Maybe it's a combination of both. I'm not sure. Ugh.
実はここだけの話。桜井先輩と広岡さんも相当にまずいのよね。
Oh, great.
Sakurai had initially been recovering fairly well, but our unsanitary environment and inability to adequately disinfect her wound proved catastrophic. She was beginning to exhibit symptoms of sepsis, almost certainly caused by bacteria invading through her wound.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? I'm headed out. Gotta get coffee and crunch payroll. No problem, Brozard. Enjoy the coffee and, earn that cheddar. Thanks for stopping in, bud. Maybe. Hopefully. Unless my bits kind of drop every now and again, which is rather annoying. Might literally be the weather. That's my guess. Oh well. I really need to test that power line stuff out. I'll, figure out if I can even get it down here. Eventually. I don't know, I need to remember the next time I'm the only one home in the morning at least to just flip the breaker for down here and see if the router turns off as well. Because if that's the case, cool, power line can happen. That's literally all I need to do, but I'm just... It's annoying to have to do because I gotta go to the breaker panel, which I mean is just kind of right over there. But I gotta go figure out exactly which breaker is the one for down here, flip it, then run upstairs and see if everything turned off, at least where the router's plugged in. If that's the case, cool, I can flip the breaker back on. And then wait for everything to go back on again and my Wi-Fi to take its time to reconnect. Along with our cable, because the router is for cable as well. Oh well.
She was now running a high fever with a consistently elevated heartbeat. She tripped over her tongue when she tried to speak, and her limbs were routinely racked by brief, painful muscle spasms, as if her body was trying to contract. She needed antibiotics, and soon. Hiroka-san was no better. In fact, she was worse. Her debilitation had progressed to the point that she no longer showed any response to our voices.
Oof.
It all came down to inadequate treatment, compounded by worsening malnutrition. The dog had been our only halfway decent meal in days. Otherwise, we were getting by on cooked snails, wild grasses, and our gruel. Really, nothing more than faintly colored water with a few grains of boiled rice floating at the bottom. Even minor injuries couldn't heal on such a diet. On the first day of our trip, we ate fluffy white rice, steaming from the cooker. I couldn't get that memory out of my mind. Back then, we gobbled the rice down without a second thought. Even had the nerve to complain about our coarse side dishes. Just remembering it made me want to scream at the pampered luxury of it all. We were so starved for sugar that tea made from the skins of onions almost tasted sweet to our tongues. But then again, our initial yearning for sweets only lasted for the first carefree week or so. At some point, we'd begun to crave salt far more than sugar. By now, we'd been reduced to licking the rust that formed from the wrecked frame of the bus after the days of the rain.
Ew. Ew.
I had reached my absolute limit. When I crawled into bed that night, I hesitated to close my eyes, afraid I'd never open them again. But then again, maybe it would be better that way. If I let my eyelids fall shut, I would sink deeply into blissful oblivion. If my heart would then quietly stop beating, wouldn't it be a blessing? I couldn't help but feel that a death without suffering would be a happier fate than to struggle on like this. But whenever I expressed those weak thoughts out loud, Kazuki would scold me.
まだ諦めるのは早いわ。
Kazuki whispered those words forcefully, as if trying to convince herself they were true. It seemed too cruel to fire back. Then how long do we have to endure? How long before we can finally give up? I could find no further words, and silence settled on the tent.
Okay, another day.
The 14th day in the valley. When morning came, Kazuki struck the bottom of the pan at normal wake-up time, but there were no signs of activity from within the tents. It wasn't that the others weren't awake, they simply couldn't get up. Recently, just standing upright was exhausting. It wasn't rare for someone to spend the majority of the day lying in their sleeping bag. Even when we attempted to move, it would often prove impossible. Every time we tried to stand, our joints would scream in pain. If we pulled ourselves upright by clinging to a tree or a rock, our knees would be shaking so hard that we could barely walk. Even so, as the sun rose and warmed the valley, those who could still move came crawling slowly out of their tents. Basking in the rays of morning light, we resembled nothing so much as a lethargic pack of iguanas escaped from the Galapagos Islands.
Very specific comparison.
For some reason, it felt as though the mere touch of the sun gave our mere touch of the sun on our skin gave us some small boost of energy. Of course, it was mostly an illusion. Our stomachs were still empty. But either way, moving around aimlessly would be a waste of calories, So we all found our seats in the sun and kept still. It was tempting to just flop down on the spot and close your eyes, but the cold stone beneath us stole body heat so quickly, so lying down would burn a surprising amount of energy. Staying awake and sitting quietly was the best way to conserve our strength. We sat on the hard ground as if rooted to the spot, unable to do anything but silently agonize over our individual fates. I've got to do something. How can I survive this? The thought churned endlessly around our heads, but merely focusing our nourishment-starved brains on a question took all our effort. Actually, producing an answer was beyond our power. And yet, even now, we were still human beings. We still hadn't broken the absolute minimum rules.
まだ地獄ではない。まだ生き残る価値のある世界だわ。
Okay, what is the absolute minimum rules?
At my side, Kazuki murmured those words to herself slowly and deliberately, as if confirming that she was still firmly conscious, still able to speak.
でもどうかしらね。もう時間の問題かもしれない。
I followed her gaze around the area. Everyone was staring goggle-eyed into the distance, their pale, slack faces shining greasily in the morning sun. There was something dangerous in the air. Given a small push in the wrong direction, it felt as though even our humanity would instantly crumble underneath us.
ユージ。今なんて？
Oh, it's your brother.
弟の名前よ。風見ユージ？そう。それが私の弟の名前。
We have not seen him forever because we're still in this flashback.
会ってみたいな。
Oh, don't worry, Amane. You've met him. Now, in the future. And really gotten to know him.
生きて帰ることができたら紹介してあげるわ。きっと気に入るはずよ。楽しみだな。きっとだよ。ええ、約束するわ。
Oh!
That afternoon, Mr. Ochi returned from his escape attempt to rejoin us on our gradual passive slide toward death.
Oh my god, we didn't even get anywhere.
He was completely emaciated. His sunken eyes were as dark and hollow as those of a wild animal. But more than lamenting his failure, the group was overjoyed at his return. I see. He failed. We were back to the drawing board yet again. That was a heavy, if somewhat abstract, disappointment. Even so, the return of our only adult male was no small relief.
Wow, even he's just like, ugh.
Not to say that our teacher's presence caused any dramatic changes in the situation. As always, we were desperately short of food. If anything, practically speaking, Mr. Ochi's return translated to nothing more than another mouth to feed, worsening our already meager daily rations. That evening, having entered the large tent to check up on the wounded, I noticed Hiroka-san had quietly stopped breathing.
Got another one.
2 weeks after Shikanai, Ozawa, and Okabe's deaths, we had our fourth casualty. Hiroka had died lying in the sleeping bag in which she'd spent the last 14 days of her life, her eyes and mouth half open. It was a gruesome sight, but there wasn't really any agitation among us. We'd all been prepared for this, even expecting it. I was no exception. Rather than grieving the death of my friend, I gazed down at her corpse in a stupor. A single thought was swirling relentlessly through my dull mind.
No, 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 no. No, 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 no. Do not go that far.
When a living thing dies, it becomes food. Kazuki had said that was only natural. So, does that go for her too? I wasn't the only one suspecting as much. Without a doubt, the others were thinking the exact same
Thing, you're gonna fucking be cannibals? Oh my god. Cannibalism was not on my fucking bingo card.
What next? At some point, all eyes had turned toward our teacher. Mr. Rochi said only, "I'll dig the grave," quietly bringing his hands together in front of Hiroka-san's corpse. What had I been thinking? Of course we were burying her. A human being eating another human being is unforgivable. No matter what. We must have been going a little soft in the head. Right. Our friend had died, and we were upset. We'd lost our heads from the shock. That was all. Our shoulders sagged to learn our stomachs would go unfilled, but all the same, we heaved sighs of relief. Without a single word of objection, we silently watched Mr. Ochi walk down into the forest to bury Hiroka-san's remains.
It doesn't even have son at the end of it. I added the son. God damn it.
I'm vile. I'm a vile, disgusting excuse for a human being. The shame welled up so suddenly and so heavily inside me that I couldn't contain my tears. Lowering myself shakily down onto the hard ground, I broke into wretched, violent sobs.
Now that great. Cannibalism is on the table. Who is gonna die next? We're on day 15 now. I think we're well past the point that search parties are happening.
The 15th day in the valley. I was awake, but I couldn't even open my eyes. My head felt packed to the
bursting? That's awkward. If we're missing like a word or two, like the breaking point or something that could have gone with that.
My head felt packed to the bursting with dull, heavy lead. Every inch of my body was painfully cold and exhausted, to the point that even breathing was difficult. There wasn't a drop of saliva in my mouth, and the back of my throat burned bitterly. I couldn't even speak. This morning, Kazuki seemed to be in similar shape. When I finally managed to force my eyelids up just a sliver, I could vaguely see her lying perfectly still on the other side of the tent, curled up like a cat. I'd always admired her strength. Wondered how she trained that tiny body to be so unbelievably tenacious. But it seemed that even her amazing endurance was reaching its limits. No, she'd probably long since passed those limits. But if Kazuki were to collapse, we would have lost a large source of hope. Without her, some of us might have long since given up. Stopped even trying to survive. Kazuki had probably been pushing herself unreasonably for our sake. Forcing herself to appear energetic and powerful. She looks so very small right now.
Kazuki.
I hoarsely croaked out her name. There was no response.
ねえ、カズキ、死んじゃったの？
I hope not. Well, I mean, we know she's gonna die. Because, you know, this is in the past, and we know his sister died.
My arm had grown painfully thin, but it still felt heavy as I reached out toward my friend's back. She was still warm, and I could feel her back rising and falling ever so slightly with her breathing. She was still alive.
カズキ、死んじゃ嫌だよ、カズキ。
My tear-filled voice finally elected a response from Kazuki. Her tone, understandably, was exceptionally grouchy.
もし私が死んだら、あなたが私を食べてね。
We're not eating anybody. You're not consuming another person. Not if I can help it. Then again, I can't help it. I literally have no say in what these characters do other than Yuji sometimes.
なんてこと言うんだよ。
Kazuki's words abruptly brought back the memories of Hiroka-san's death, and my breath caught in my throat.
死んだら嫌だよ、カズキ。
Oh my
死ぬなら
god.
一緒に死んでよ。私を置いて先に死んだら嫌だよ。私を見捨てないで。
Surviving alone in this hell would be meaningless. Kazuki responded to my heartfelt whimpering with a snuffling little laugh.
冗談よ。大丈夫。私はまだ死なないわ。
She wasn't going to die just yet, but eventually that time would come. Everything living dies. Another rule of nature. The most fundamental of all.
Unless you're a jellyfish, apparently. Just go on living for fucking ever, apparently.
That inevitable end was no longer an abstract, distant concept for us. Our debilitation had reached the final stages. One by one, we were wasting away. Today, Sakurai-senpai and Komori-san were the casualties.
Oh, so Komori died. Her seizure got too much, so she just died. And Sakurai, I'm not surprised. She had sepsis. Yep. Oh, God!
Sakurai died from her sepsis. Komori killed herself. We found her hanging from a tree. Numb as we'd grown to horror, the suicide sent a disturbed ripple through the camp. But after the initial shock passed, we felt little more than resigned acceptance. Since eating her dog's flesh, Komori had clearly been mentally unstable and physically frail. Even before her sudden collapse yesterday, we'd all seen her acting strangely. She would totter off alone into the forest, then wander around, calling loudly for
Alione. Yeah, the dog. Bitray, what are you doing? See it freaking out all the time now. Is the weather really this bad? That's pretty shitty. Unless maybe just my Wi-Fi adapter is kind of crappy? Which, it's possible. I could just have a bad Wi-Fi adapter. Yeah, maybe I'll look for a potentially better Wi-Fi adapter, USB one. I'll do a quick USB Wi-Fi adapter. So who knows, maybe it's just not the best anymore. Not that great anymore. Cause I mean, I catch the Wi-Fi on my phone and I've got no issues. It's just the computer that's got the problems. And it might be a cheaper alternative than other thing. Wi-Fi adapter for desktop live streaming. Yeah, sorry if I'm just kind of derailing stream briefly to do this. It's just it's really been just kind of acting up now. Alright, what a PC gamer got? Best full-size Wi-Fi adapter. I don't need a thing for gaming laptops. Sorry, I'm looking. I'm looking at like a literal full-sized adapter here. Okay, click the link. View on Amazon. Let me see it. How much? I'm curious. Almost $100! Jesus Christ. I don't think I'm ready to spend $100 on a Wi-Fi adapter. What do the reviews of this thing say? I mean, it more than gives the range I'd need. If it catches that signal. Okay, let me see the reviews. Very sensitive to orientation. Oh. Not good for gaming, okay for general house use. Does what it's supposed to very well. Huh. Okay. But I saw a power line. Good old Netgear power line. Maybe I'd pay for the version with extra outlet. Yeah, it's got an outlet on it. Yeah, that would probably be the best. I'm sorry, I'm like shopping right now. Yeah, I understand how it works. It's like 89 bucks. Could just get it for the hell of it. I don't know. What do the reviews of this version say? Set up in minutes, no need to configure. Yeah, that's good. It'll get you online, but that's about it. I love how people are saying it doesn't give a lot. It's like, it only provides about 70 to 80 megabits per second on a 1 gig connection. Down here, I'm lucky to get 2 megabytes. I think people just got home, so my Wi-Fi's gonna, like, yeah, my bitrate's going to bad now. Certainly, you plug these into sockets on the same circuit counts. They do work. They do work if you don't get anywhere near the speed for your internet. Some breaker types and panels interference can cause problems, but that's only common in North America. Crashes my Google Mesh Wi-Fi. Interesting. Yeah, sorry, I'm on this little thing. Powerline networking. Issues. Must be plugged into, well, yeah, or somewhat large. Okay, that's fine. I don't care if they're big. I got enough room. Okay. I might just say fuck it and get it anyway. Maybe. We'll see. Yeah, sorry about the little detour there. Just... You know how it is. You know how I am. I'll probably just say fuck it, do it. I'll spring for the ones that have the outlets on the outside, so even if it is taking up spot, I can still plug other things into it.
And back at camp, she'd push her useless battery-dead cell phone against her ear and hold extended conversations with her dead pet. Okay, she was really off the rocker. Everyone had felt vaguely apprehensive about her bizarre behavior, but there was nothing we could do for her. When the labored breathing of a girl sitting nearby grew faint as a whisper, the thought, another one's dying, would pass through our minds. But we didn't feel sorrow or pity. They were luxuries we could no longer afford.
Oh, I just noticed that the two of them that just died aren't here anymore. They're not, you know, collapsed. There's less people. Oof.
When Mr. Ochi carried each new corpse into the forest to bury it, the only thought we could muster was one less mouth to feed. Cold-hearted, cruel thoughts. But we no longer had even the strength to hate ourselves for them. The terror of watching your friends die one after another. The terror that you might be next. The escalating terror of our reality overwhelmed us, and some began to escape from it entirely. Drunk on the adrenaline our brains secreted to numb the agonizing fear, our thoughts lurched into bizarre, irrational directions. I don't want to die. If somebody dies in my place, maybe I'll survive. Without any logic or evidence, many had begun to believe something of the sort. That inside this ravine, one life could somehow be traded for another. If somebody else dies, I'll live. In this claustrophobic little world where nothing enters or leaves, the total amount of well-being must be fixed. Depriving another of their happiness is the only path to survival. That was the new dogma of the dying.
あんた早く死になよ。
Jesus.
君こそ遠慮しないでさっさと死になよ。
That day, the only ones with enough energy to do more than simply limp on the ground cursing were Mr. Ochi and the captain. Since Mr. Ochi's return the previous afternoon, the two of them had made numerous trips to forage for food on the behalf of those who could no longer move. They even cooked meager meals of weeds and snails, and then fed them to the weakened girls. They spoke words of encouragement as they spoon-fed the feeble. Don't give up. You can't die. If those two hadn't been here, none of us would have made it past morning. The thought drove home just how useless I was in comparison, and tears welled up in my eyes. Several times since Mr. Ochi's return, the two had even managed to capture a few animals deep in the forest. Little chunks of venison and wild hare began to appear in the standard weed soup. The girls who ate it slowly began to regain some of their vitality. I thought there were no animals.
和樹、お肉だよ。ほら、久しぶり。私はいいわ。誰か他の子にあげて。
I thought there were, I thought there were no animals around. Or are they just going that deep into the forest? They're finding something.
どうして？部活に肉を食べると肝炎になるわよ。
catch hepatitis?
ちゃんと火を通してるから大丈夫だよ。私はまだ死にたくないし、生き残った後苦しむのもごめんだわ。
By now, Captain Sakashida and Mr. Ochi were gathering the majority of the group's food. Oh my god, this bit race going nutty.
Probably doesn't help I have my computer on the actual floor. I have nowhere else I can really put it. It's kind of big. Unless I were to put it, like, behind the monitor? I don't think that would help. I'll see. I'll see what I do about that. This is getting really inconsistent. That ain't great.
And Kazuki, whose sudden debilitation was so intense she had difficulty standing, had quickly and utterly lost the status she had gained among us since the fall. Everyone worshipped the captain like a god for providing food. And despite all that Kazuki had done for us up until now, no one expressed worry about her condition. Far from it. The looks they gave her clearly read, "Hurry up and die." Maybe she was resistant to the idea of accepting the Ascendant Captain's charity? Whatever the case, Kazuki absolutely refused to eat the meat her rival brought back from the forest. Idiotic pride for someone at death's door. But as irritated as I was, I couldn't betray or disobey Kazuki. I bitterly gave up our share of the meat, offering it to those who were even worse off. That night, I would come to understand that I had made the correct choice in doing so.
What do you mean you made the correct choice?
A little before dawn, I woke up to the rustling sound of someone moving around in the tent. Sluggishly forcing open my heavy eyelids, I strained to see what was going on.
Amane, 起きなさい。
Kazuki had rolled up her sleeping bag and packed all of her belongings in the rucksack she normally used as a pillow. One hand clutching my shoulder, she slowly shook me awake.
何？どうしたの？
Still half asleep, I spoke more loudly than I had intended. Kazuki quickly drew a forefinger to her mouth and whispered a brief, "Shh."
あれを見なさい。
Kazuki lifted the flap of the tent slightly open, and I peered through to see the captain and Mr. Ochi walking off together into the dark forest.
何？部長と先生、どこへ行くの？知る必要はないわ。チャンスは今よ。ここを抜け出しましょう。抜け出すってどういう？そのままの意味よ。この山を出て家に帰るの。もう助けなんか来ない。自力で脱出するのよ。
I didn't understand what she was talking about. The words were clear enough, but the meaning just wouldn't register.
どうして今このタイミングで？説明している時間がないのよ。できるだけ急いで支度を済ませて誰にも気づかれないように。他のみんなは？
Kazuki fixed a deadly serious gaze directly on my eyes, and I faltered to a halt.
いい？アマネ。鬼は連れていけない。わかる？
Ghouls?
わからない。わから だよ和樹。鬼ってどういう意味？知りたいのなら後で教えてあげる。いいから今は急ぎなさい。わかった。
To be honest, I didn't have the first idea about what was going on. But Kazuki was never wrong. If Kazuki told me to leave, I would leave. That simple faith was guiding me now. I stuffed my possessions into the rucksack as quickly as I could in the dim tent. Barely waiting for me to finish, Kazuki impatiently grabbed my hand and pulled me along, quickly and quietly leading me out of the camp.
Kazuki, どこへ行くの？静かについていらっしゃい。今全部見せてあげる。見せる？いい。決して大きな声を出してはダメよ。わかった？うん。
Just, what was she planning to show me? Clueless but obedient, I passively followed Kazuki down the valley and into the forest. We were retracing the steps of Mr. Ochi and Captain Sakashita. For some reason, that realization filled me with dread. Some instinct was whispering faintly, "Don't go any further. Don't take another step." Some truths are best left unseen.
Once a secret is known, it cannot be unknown.
My skin tingled as though all the pores in my body had suddenly opened wide. With every step, my heartbeat grew louder in my ears. Cold, sticky sweat settled unpleasantly in my armpits.
見てごらんなさい。
Whispering so softly I could barely hear her over the cries of the cicadas, Kazuki pointed through a thicket to the clearing beyond. Captain Sakashita and Mr. Ochi were inside.
What the fuck? That is clothing. And a lot of... No, 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 no! No, 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 no.
Illuminated by the faint moonlight that slipped through the cracks in the tree canopy, the captain's white skin shone vividly in the darkness.
Oh. Okay, not what I thought, still.
Her skirt and jacket were lying in a messy heap on the ground. She was right next to Mr. Ochi, standing on tiptoe to bring her face to his.
あの二人、こんな関係だったんだ。
Okay, so it's not what I thought, they're just fucking.
あなた、何を見ているの？え？周りをもっとよく見てごらんなさい。
I removed my glasses, carefully wiped the lenses with the cuff of my uniform, and then put them back on. This time, I noticed a number of strange whitish lumps lying in the grass amid their scattered clothes. At first glance, they almost looked like oversized radishes covered in grime and dirt. But as my eyes adjusted to the faint light, I realized that the black smudges were actually deep red. And the white objects were fragments of a truth better left unseen. I couldn't contain my shriek. And before I had time to regret that mistake, tears were pouring out of my eyes, bile was rising in my throat, and I was stumbling backward, falling to the ground.
Oh, good God!
My shoulders quivered at the vicious shout, but I simply couldn't stand. My legs had turned to rubber. My eyes were fixed on the scene before me. The face of Mr. Ochi, glaring in our direction with eyes like a demon's, and Captain Sakashida's lips, stained a horrible shade of red. When I looked down, seeking escape from the awful sight, I noticed a silver bracelet in the grass nearby. It was shining in the moonlight, so even with my poor vision, it wasn't hard to make out the—
Oh, that's the dog's collar. Komori wore the dog's collar as a bracelet after it died. That was Akun's collar.
When the dog wasted away and died, Komori-san had coiled it around her wrist, oh my god. Which had to mean... Have they just been going out and eating the bodies? And then bringing it back for them to eat? Burning tide of gastric juices surged up my throat. As I noisily vomited onto the ground, Kazuki grabbed me by the shoulder. With a flat, "We're going to run now," she forcibly dragged me to my feet. Oh, God. Disoriented, the taste of acid thick in my mouth, I let Kazuki pull me into a run. From behind, I heard the captain's snarling voice.
見られたの?
The voice that had always encouraged me during practice, firm but kind. Good hustle out there. The voice that had offered us all reassurances as she distributed the food. Don't give up. Captain Sakashida's voice was now...
捕まえて! 逃がしちゃダメ! 殺して!
the voice of a ghoul. This couldn't be. This had to be a dream. Why wasn't I waking up? This absolutely couldn't be real. As these thoughts swirled through my dazed mind, Kazuki hissed into my ear as if to slap me awake.
だから声を出すなと言ったのに失敗したわ。これでもうタガが外れた。殺し合いが始まるわよ。
The killing has begun?
殺し合い。あの人たちをもう人間だと思わない方がいいわ。嘘だよ。こんなの、これは夢でしょ。現実逃避もいいけれど、後にしてくれるかしら。ぐずぐずして面倒になるようならここで捨てていくわよ。
I clung tightly to Kazuki like a little girl terrified of being left behind by her mother. There was nothing to do but run. If I were to succumb to the pull of madness and fall to the ground, my life would end. For now, I could only clutch Kazuki's hand and run into the dark heart of the forest where the light of the stars couldn't betray us.
止まって。
Suddenly, Kazuki raised her hand and barked a command. As I came to a halt, something moved slightly in the corner of my eye. A black shadow slowly emerged, as if oozing out of the darkness ahead.
やあ、こんな時間にどこへ行くんだい？
佐久間先輩、ここにいちゃダメです。坂下部長と先生が。
halfway through my sentence, I noticed something odd about Sakuma's glassy gaze. Her eyes were focused on the rucksacks we were carrying, and her swollen face betrayed not surprise, but suspicion.
アマネ、逃げるのよ。その人はもうダメ。
Sakuma furrowed her brow at Kazuki's words.
そうか。見てしまったのか。二人とも。
Oh, she knows.
佐久間先輩。
どうする？今戻れば私が坂下にうまく説明してあげるけど。
アマネ！
Kazuki seized my backpack and practically forced me into a run.
左の干木の中へ。
Honestly, I couldn't tell my left from my right at that moment, but Kazuki's grip stayed firm and we plunged into the short thicket, pushing our way through the grasping branches toward escape. Sakuma didn't pursue us. Instead, she spoke a few words. Her voice like a whisper, but somehow it found its way all too clearly to my ears.
残念だよ。そう。私は君のこと結構気に入っていたんだよ。本当に残念だ。
Sakuma senpai had known? She had known what Sakashita and Ochi were doing? She'd known everything and kept her silence?
ねえ、カズキ。何？質問なら後にしてちょうだい。今は急いで。佐久間先輩は知っていたの？カズキも気がついていたの？
The only one who didn't know?
私だけなんで教えてくれなかったの？知ったところで誰にも止められない。こうなるのは必然だったのよ。いいやまね。ここにいるのはもう人間じゃない。動物よ。
But we're humans. In order for people to live as human beings, 3 basic rules need to be respected. Don't steal. Don't destroy. Don't kill. When even one collapses, when breaking it becomes natural, it's only a matter of time until the other 2 give way. And when it comes to that, no one can stop the downhill slide. When people fall below the absolute minimum standard of humanity, they revert to a simpler, more primitive set of rules.
Jesus Christ.
泣かないで、鬱陶しい。
Kazuki quickly held her hand against my mouth, but the unbelievably cruel nature was beyond my capacity to endure. It was far too sudden and far too strong a dose. I had to scream. If I didn't scream, the terror would tear me apart from the inside.
黙りなさい。
We've been pushing our way through the bushes and stands of trees to keep hidden from our pursuers, but there was no point if I was broadcasting our location. Kazuki pushed her hand firmly down, finally stifling my muffled shriek, and turned to face me. In the faint pre-dawn light, the whites of Kazuki's unblinking eyes stood out powerfully against her mud-stained face. It was the harsh glare of a father dragged out of bed by a bawling toddler. Staring back into those steady eyes, I drew clipped, trembling breaths through my nose. In time, my cries faded against her palm.
いい子ね、アマネ。泣かなくていいのよ。約束したでしょ。あなたは必ず私が助けるから、何も心配はいらないの。わかる？
My throat was continuing to spasm convulsively, probably because I'd stopped crying so suddenly. But despite everything else, the feeling of Kazuki's hand squeezing mine tightly was genuinely reassuring.
Oh, good God. They were all in on it.
Kaneda's voice rang out in the darkness. From the volume of her voice, she was no more than 20 or 30 meters away from the thicket where we crouched hidden. I looked back to Kazuki's face and spoke in a whisper.
金田先輩だよね。鬼に飲み込まれたか、騙されているのか、脅されているのか。どのみちあの人ももう引き返せない。
The footsteps of the ghouls approached us from behind. If they caught us, they would kill us immediately, or make us one of them. Even in the latter case, we wouldn't stay allies for very long. It was all too clear that these creatures would kill without a second thought. There were many feet stepping through the mud, many branches snapping in the darkness behind us. Engulfed in the madness that had spread from Ochi and Sakashita, the others had abandoned themselves to the final rule and become corpse eaters. Demons. Reason and morality no longer had any meaning to them.
Holy fuck!
In the end, nobody wants to die.
逃げるわよ。
They're just eating the bodies. When did this fucking start?
Jesus Christ. We fought our way forward through the soft, slushy mulch of decayed leaves, desperately climbing the slope from before us. My feet sank deeply into the muddy soil, my legs, trembling from malnutrition, tangled awkwardly with every stride. Our pursuers' eyes glistened in the darkness like pools of oil. Those eyes betrayed no hatred, no anger. They weren't the eyes of people looking at their enemy. They were the eyes of beasts that knew no emotion but hunger. They were looking at their prey. If they catch us, they're going to kill us on the spot! The terror paralyzed my brain, and even focused, the slope would have been difficult to climb. My leg caught in a muddy patch of leaves, and I tumbled down onto the ground.
Amane, 立って、お願いだから。もういいよ、カズキ。一人で逃げて。私はもう無理。怖くて動けない。
My hands shaking pathetically, I lowered my rucksack to the ground and took out a kitchen knife carefully wrapped in newspaper.
私、今ここで死ぬ。
They'd probably swarm around my corpse when they found me. That distraction would at least enable Kazuki to escape. I unwrapped the stainless steel knife from the newspaper with trembling hands. But at the sight of the shining blade, my mind froze with dread. If I stab my neck with this, will I die instantly?
No.
I bet it's going to hurt. Oh, God. I don't want it to hurt. But as my hands continued their relentless, terrified trembling, Kazuki knelt down beside me and gently wrapped them in her own.
その役目は私がやるわ。 私がおとりになると言っているのよ。
Oh god.
Before I knew it, Kazuki had smoothly taken the knife from my hand.
どうしてカズキが。
I was the one who couldn't move. I was the one who'd given up. Why would Kazuki be the one to do this? Well, why should Kazuki be the one to do this for my sake? It made no sense.
いい？アマネ、よく聞いてちょうだい。
Holding the knife in an underhand grip, Kazuki lowered her rucksack from her back and pressed it against my chest.
この中に隠しておいた食料と塩が入っているわ。ペース配分を考えてちゃんと計算して消費するのよ。カズキ、あなたに預けておいたチョコレートとキャンディーも全部あなたが食べていいわ。それとこれ。
Kazuki reached into the pocket of her skirt and took out a few sheets of paper from a memo pad.
ここに生きて山を脱出するための方法をメモしておいたから、これをしっかりと読んで諦めずに進みなさい。
What the fuck?
やだ、カズキ、嘘でしょ。どうして私を見捨てるの？大丈夫よ、私は死なないわ。いつか必ずまた会えるからね。本当？あら、私が今まであなたに嘘をついたことがある？あるんでしょ？発覚していない嘘と真実との違いを述べよ。配点10点。
Oh my god.
冗談を言ってる場合、カズキが一人で逃げてよ。私はもう疲れちゃったよ。もう無理だよ。
Ooh, very tired.
いいから行きなさい。私を誰だと思っているの？私に従っていれば何も心配はないわ。ほら立って走るのよ。カズキ、絶対に振り返ってはダメよ。ほら急いで走りなさい。
They say that a person's true nature is revealed only when their back's against the wall. I abandoned Kazuki to save my own skin. Leaving her as a decoy, leaving her to be eaten, I moved my legs furiously, desperate to gain every centimeter of safety I could. There was no doubt in my mind she would die. Kazuki would be the sacrifice, and one cowardly, worthless girl would survive a little longer. I was overflowing with guilt. Bitter tears of shame rolled endlessly down my face. Even if I got away, even if I returned alive, this unbearable self-loathing would crush me under its weight. With every step I took, that conviction grew stronger. My legs were leaden underneath me.
Jesus fucking Christ. This went from 0 to a 180 real quick.
You absolutely mustn't turn back. She had told me clearly enough. But just once, at the end, I stopped. I looked back. The demons had gathered, the beams from their flashlights dancing through the trees. And at the center of their circle, Kazuki was lying on the ground, pinned down by the things that had been our friends. Last time I saw her face, Kazuki wasn't crying. She wasn't screaming. She wasn't glaring resentfully. She was smiling. She smiled, as if to say this was fate. As if to say this was the rule. As if to say it was nothing worth troubling myself over. If Kazuki had screamed for help, if she'd cursed me, called me a traitor, I might never have moved from that spot. I might have run back and fought. But Kazuki quietly, peacefully gazed into my eyes, accepting her fate. Her words flooded into my mind. Amane, listen to me. The creatures in this forest are no longer human beings. They're animals. Plain and simple. I stopped looking back. I turned my back on her for the last time, and I ran, chanting, "Forgive me," in my mind like a mantra.
God damn.
As the sky grew light with the dawn, I ran desperately, not knowing where my feet were carrying me. I simply fled, pushing through the forest in a frenzy, as if to escape my own terror and guilt.
Now we don't even know what fucking day it is. What in the mother of the 16th day now, huh? Why did everything go so insane? What the fuck? So I guess Kazuki's dead now. Obviously. And what? The others just tear themselves apart trying to survive? Ooh. Thank you, Mochi, by the way. Thank you for keeping this quiet, and, you know... Yeah, now I know. They were literally eating each other at the end. Thanks! Thanks a lot, buddy, for keeping quiet about that. I did not expect tribalist cannibalism. Let's just eat the dead, it's no problem. Oh, someone found out? Well, better eat them too. Like, holy fuck!
Who wrote this damn game?
Okay. Continuing on. Fuck.
How many days had passed since then? I didn't exactly have the leisure time or composure to write a daily entry in my diary, but I think it had been 5 nights. 5 nights spent relentlessly, mindlessly marching forward through the jungle. Following the instructions Kazuki had left in her note, I walked only by darkness, in order to hide my movements from the ghouls. When the sun rose, I hid myself in bushes and tried to sleep. This lasted a few hours at most, and when I woke from these brief periods of rest, the first order of business was always to peel off the leeches that covered my body. Ugh! Then throw the fat bloodsuckers into my mouth, crush them with my teeth, and force them down my throat.
I don't think you're supposed to eat leeches.
Kazuki's rucksack contained a small hoard of various snacks and sweets. Her secret treasure. Just as I'd thought, she'd stolen the food from Ozawa's belongings on the very first day, then carefully stashed it away. Since escaping, I hadn't touched those precious snacks. Not even once. If Kazuki were to somehow escape her captors and catch up with me, I intended to give it all back to her. There was real food just inside that bag. The temptation was overwhelmingly powerful. But if I were to yield to my hunger and greedily devour Kazuki's treasure, I'd be admitting I was fundamentally no different from the ravenous ghouls. I couldn't bring myself to do it. When the forest was dry enough to light a fire, I boiled fern sprouts and chrysanthemums for my meals. My starvation and exhaustion were now complemented by constant terror of the demons that were no doubt pursuing me. My hair had begun to fall out in bunches, oh my god. I, too, had been pushed well beyond my limit, and I was about ready to break. Even so, Kazuki had saved my life. I couldn't allow that to become meaningless. I couldn't just give up. During the daylight hours, I simply laid still and hidden in the bushes, unable to sleep, but preserving my energy as best I could. When the day grew dark, I would crawl cautiously out of the undergrowth, then begin the astronomical observation described in Kazuki's notes. The lush canopy of trees above hid much of the sky, rendering it difficult to determine the location of the stars. And as in any forest, the orienteering line of the horizon was unclear. I might well have been able to get a better view by climbing one of the taller trees, but I no longer had the strength to do any such thing. Just how far had I walked? Walking and pushing my way through lush weeds and wild grasses, struggling through thick bushes that obstructed my path. The distance I moved in any given day didn't amount to much. After one full night's work of hiking through the jungle, I turned back to see if I can get some idea of my progress, only to find that the ridge I'd been standing on last night was still visible. I could feel my willpower shriveling inside me. Deciding I could urge myself no further that day, I collapsed on the spot, hugging Kazuki's rucksack tightly to my body. Her scent had permeated the tough fabric, and when I slept, she appeared in my dreams. In those dreams, Kazuki said nothing. She stood some 20 paces ahead, silently looking over her shoulder, staring into my eyes. I screamed her name and tried to step forward, but it was frustratingly difficult to move. I shoved my way through thick weeds, my feet sinking into thick mud with every step, ignoring the branches cutting at my cheeks. But no matter how desperately I forced myself forward, Kazuki moved away at the same speed. I couldn't catch up with her no matter how I tried. When I gave up and sagged to a halt, Kazuki stopped as well. Again, she gazed back into my eyes. "What on earth are you doing all the way back there?" She never spoke, but her expression conveyed the words clearly enough.
Kazuki.
I awoke at the sound of my own sleep-talking. I was no longer dreaming of food these last few days. I'd come to realize what I wanted more than anything else in the world was no longer food or drink. It was Kazumi Kazuki. And once again, I walked through the night. As I dragged my heavy legs forward, exhausted and starving, Kazuki came into view a little ways away. She strode slowly ahead through the dark forest, her back turned to me.
待ってよ、Kazuki.
And as I pursued her, I could see many others further beyond. Vaguely defined figures walked the same path as Kazuki, flickering and melting into each other. All wore a familiar school uniform. Even in the darkness, I knew them. The one that had been Hiroka. Further on, I could see Sakurai. Many others as well. Shikanai, Ozawa, Okabe, Alione, frolicking at Komori's feet. The ones who had already died walked among the trees, shimmering hazily in the night. They looked over their shoulders one by one and spoke. This way. I finally started hallucinating. Guess I'll just be following them now. Have them guide me to heaven. No. Will it really be heaven? Well, I've been in hell until now. If they're taking me somewhere else, it's probably heaven. Right?
みんな待って、私うまく歩けないよ。置いていかないで。ねえ、みんな。
I could no longer lift my legs. The world grew cloudy before my eyes. A heavy, leaden drowsiness assaulted my mind. Even where I was, what I was doing had begun to grow fuzzy. With the thought, guess this is as far as I go, I fell hard to my knees, then pitched forward onto the cold earth.
もうダメだ。情けない。私、天国にも行けずに、このままこんな中途半端な場所で死ぬんだ。
Jesus Christ. Literally pushed to the breaking point. My God. Ooh.
As I pressed my face into the ground, my ears began to ring. A fairly common phenomenon before passing out. It's something like the sound of your own baseline brainwaves. Faint here, and the leeches are gonna be all over me again. But as the thought ran vaguely through my wobbling head, my ears picked up a noise clearly distinct from that high-pitched tone. What's that sound?
That's a vehicle!
I focused my mind on that strange noise and decided it sounded almost like a car running on an unpaved road. Specifically, the sound of tires rolling through gravel. And mixed in with that crunching white noise, there was something like the weak whining of a 3-cylinder engine. Sounds just like a mini-truck. Heaven sent somebody out to greet me? Are angels these days in the habit of picking up the dead in cute little pickups?
なあ、ほな。
When the sound passed, the ringing in my ears was gone as well. Once more, I pulled my ragged body off the ground. Once more, I forced myself upright, my weary legs trembling with the effort.
Okay, she's close to somebody. Unless she's hallucinating the sound of a truck.
I hadn't realized during the night, but apparently at some point I'd drawn near a road. A real, honest-to-God road. A path human beings traveled. Beyond the thick rows of trees, through the wet, cold dawn air of the forest, I could see the gravelly track stretched out below. This isn't a hallucination, right? Incredulous as I was, I didn't take the time to pinch my cheeks. Half sidling down the muddy slope, I made my way toward the road that lay before me.
嘘本当に
Oh my gosh, she got out.
It wasn't paved. It wasn't well maintained. But without a doubt, it was a road surfaced by human hands, traveled by human vehicles. My mind whirling, I began to walk unsteadily down the road in the direction I thought the truck had been headed. And before long, I found myself in front of a vast field, extending as far as the eye could see. It was full of thousands and thousands of cabbages.
She found a farm. Oh my god.
I didn't scream with joy at the sight. Without a word, I drew a few slow, shuddering breaths, then plunged into the field. Ripping the nearest cabbage from the ground, I sunk my teeth into it ferociously. In a frenzy, not bothering to chew, I ate.
Oh my god. Have you ever been so hungry? Jesus. Have you ever been so hungry you just ate a raw cabbage straight out of the ground? God damn. Wrong. Let's see.
My first thought wasn't, I'm saved. It wasn't, I can finally go home. There was only one thing on my mind. Eating the cabbages in front of me. Without a drop of seasoning or even a sprinkle of salt, those cabbages were so delicious my eyes rolled back in my head from sheer ecstasy.
You gonna find people yet?
I ate and ate. Deliriously, frantically, as if possessed. Cackling madly, I ate. Laughing in between spasmodic whimpers that seized my throat, tears pouring down my face, I ate. It was 30 minutes before the farmer's housewife noticed something single-mindedly ripping through the cabbage field like a crazed wild animal. When she ran to tell her husband about the bizarre creature devouring the crops, he ran out with his hunting rifle, only to find a human being. It was another 30 minutes before the ambulance he called arrived.
Oh my god.
And lying in my hospital bed, I finally told the local police officers who I was. That I'd been on a bus that had gone missing nearly 3 weeks before. And so, at the cost of many terrible sacrifices, one pathetic girl crawled her way back to the human world alive.
Okay, now we're back in the present.
セーブしちゃう
I'm gonna be honest with you guys. That was more than I thought. But we're finally out of the fucking flashback. Well, McDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O, and on that farm we had an Amane. Hey Nick, how's it going? I'll look something up real quick. Hey Nichols! What did I miss? Been lurking for like half an hour? Um... What happened? I was here the whole time, just didn't want to say anything yet. Oh, okay, that's all good. Lurking is fine. To sum up, Nichols, some of the girls were just dying one by one. One of them actually hung themselves, apparently. Then suddenly, in the middle of the night, Kazuki dragged Amane away to, like, we need to leave. Now. And also wanted to show Amane why they had to leave. Turns out the captain and Mr. Ochi were eating corpses of the girls that had died. And also feeding it to the other girls. And when they realized we were watching, they were coming for us, ready to kill. All the other girls were also in on it, so anyone that could still moving was trying to kill us. Kazuki sacrificed herself so Amane could get away. And she did. She managed to find a farm, started eating a shit ton of cabbage, and then went to the hospital, finally. Yeah, I did not expect it to go that badly. They started just fucking eating people, eating dead bodies. Kazuki did not call them humans anymore. She called them ghouls. They were just ghouls. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot to process. I knew something terrible had to happen, but God, yeah, that's what happened. A grand total of 3 girls died while we were still there. Excluding the ones that had died previously, like when the crash had happened. 3 of them had died. And the rest of them started eating the corpses. At the very least, the captain and Mr. Ochi started eating the corpses and then saying we brought some venison, we brought some rabbit, eat up. Yeah. And yeah, they're ready to kill all of us. Ready to kill, Amane and Kazuki. It was gonna be either we kill you now, or you join us. So, I'm gonna assume they all tore each other apart once they ran out of fresh corpses to eat. And that's why Amane was the only one to survive. By the time they found the bus, the rest had probably just, devoured each other. Christ almighty. So, I am actually, I'm actually gonna call it there right now for today, I think. Just because, holy fuck. That was more than I expected. A lot more than I expected. And, I'd rather kind of go into, not flashback, tomorrow. I'm gonna relax from that a bit. And also, the Wi-Fi keeps really acting up for some reason. I'm kind of starting to think it might just be my Wi-Fi adapter on my computer. This might be kind of bad. It's a little older, so maybe it's just not catching the signal well anymore. Or as well as it used to. Maybe I have to just unplug it and plug it back in. Maybe that'll fix it. Don't worry about that later. So yeah, I'm gonna end for today. Well, right now. I am getting my COVID booster shot in a few hours. hopefully I feel alright, so I'll be able to do Kingdom Hearts tonight. If not, I will let you guys know on Twitter and in the Discord that, you know, I can't. Just because either I feel like absolute shit, or I, you know, just, my arm hurts too much for me to even want to try to focus and play. We'll see, though. Thanks, it should be absolutely nothing. I don't think I'll have much. Might just be a little sore, that's about it. I'll even make them poke it into my left arm, the one I don't use predominantly, unless I use the right. Good old righty. Oh yeah. So, thank you, everybody, for watching, commenting, and lurking, and thanks again, Anonymous, for the gifted sub. Like, thanks? This is the third one you've given so far. I'm assuming you're the same person from last night. So, like, thank you a lot. You don't have to do that. So I appreciate it even more. Anyway, hope everyone has themselves a good rest of their afternoon, and I'll probably